Urgent, Birds fan! Look at what just happened. Nobody saw this coming, huh? But first, make sure to subscribe to the channel because we bring you daily videos with the latest Birds news. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles sneakiest 2025 NFL free agency signing. This Howie Roseman signing may have a sneaky big impact on the Eagles this fall. Despite making a point of not signing any major free agent deals this offseason, opting to instead focus on resigning their own while collecting compensatory picks, the Philadelphia Eagles did leave the first two waves of free agency with 10 new players signed to their roster, some of them potential starters, others falling into more of the depth category. They landed help on the edge, with Azeez Ojulari and Josh Uche set to compete with Jalix Hunt and any soon-to-be rookies for the spot opposite Nolan Smith. They found a new right guard in Kenyon Green to compete with Tyler Steen for the spot vacated by Mekhi Becton. The Eagles even addressed their special teams unit, hoping that the additions of returnman Avery Williams and long snapper Charlie Hewlett would elevate Michael Clay's unit to new heights. But which of these signings are sneaky or at least underrated? Which move doesn't look like a game changer but could very well fit that mark this fall when the season kicks into gear? It could be a tight end like Kylen Granson or Harrison Bryant if Dallas Goedert is traded. It could also be a player like Adoree Jackson or Kendall Lamb if the Birds were to suffer a long-term injury at one of the most important positions on the team. Or it could be A.J. Dillon, the running back Howie Roseman signed away from the Green Bay Packers, who has a chance to elevate the Eagles' offense not just because of what he can do, but how his talents could make Philadelphia's best player. Saquon Barkley worked just a little bit less on the way to a Super Bowl defense. The Eagles can't run Saquon Barkley into the ground in 2024. The Eagles had a pretty tried-and-true strategy to win games. Nick Sirianni's squad got a lead early, played stout defense against increasingly one-dimensional opponents, and ran out the clock with the incredible play of Barkley as their lead back. Granted, the Eagles never needed an excuse to run the ball, as they finished out the season with the most rushing attempts and the second most rushing yards of any team in the NFL. Barkley's 5.8 yards per carry effectively allowed the team to pick up a first down every 2 runs, and even if they found themselves on 4th down, they could easily convert the play with their signature contribution to the NFL world, the tush push, while Barkley didn't look gassed when it came time for the playoffs, as he ran the ball more often than anyone else in the NFL over his 16 games of action. His 2024 workload is likely untenable moving forward, especially if the Eagles again find themselves playing a 21-game season on the way to the Super Bowl. Enter Dillon, a certified power back who knows a thing or two about playing alongside and in place of a slasher from his time in Green Bay. A.J. Dillon could become the Eagles' closer in 2025. Originally drafted in the 2nd round out of Boston College, Dillon is one of the more powerful rushers in the NFL, with his 700-plus pound squats earning him the moniker Quadzilla, along with the respect of Barkley himself. While Dillon doesn't share Barkley's versatility and has never even been a full-time lead back for a team because of his time playing with Aaron Jones in Green Bay, the collegiate Eagle is more than capable of picking up the slack and shouldering a heavy load between the tackles at the end of games where his trucking could allow him to pick up hard yards as the clock ticked down. Over his 4-year NFL career, he missed 2024 due to injury. Dillon averaged 1 yards per attempt. He did catch the ball on occasion as a weapon out of the backfield, catching 86 of the 110 balls thrown his way for 763 yards and 2 touchdowns, but was mostly used as a powerful change of pace when Jones left the field. When things got interesting, however, is when Dillon didn't exit the field before Jones checked in, and the Packers decided to deploy the elusive 21 personnel, or pony package, where the 2 backs worked together to confuse opposing defenses. Because of this experience, Dillon got extra work as a lead back, where his size, strength, and blocking abilities made him a natural fit next to the shiftier Jones. With Ben VanSumeren returning but coming off of an injury, the Eagles may opt to give Dillon a chance to play some fullback this fall, with his ability to block, run the ball, or catch a pass in the flat, unlike any look Philadelphia deployed last fall. Throw that all together, and Dillon has the potential to be much more than Kenneth Gainwell 2.0. In 2024, the Eagles really didn't have a 5th offensive option behind Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and either Dallas Goedert or Grant Calcaterra, depending on who was healthy for the game. They tried various WR3s from Johnny Wilson to Jahan. Dotson attempted 2 tight end looks and even broke out the fullback to see if they could borrow a page from Kyle Shanahan's playbook back in San Francisco. And yet, in the end, the Eagles remained what they were, a run-first team with Brown and Smith getting the bulk of the downfield opportunities created by stout boxes loaded up by Barkley's presence. So if the Eagles will likely stick to this same strategy moving forward, as there's little reason to believe Kevin Patullo will divert too sharply from the success Kellen Moore found last year, why not add another running back who could make their ground attack even harder to stop, especially with a whole new world of possibilities opened up with potential pony packages? If opposing teams had that much trouble slowing down Barkley on his own, how much better could he be if Dillion takes 15 snaps per game when opposing defenders are selling out to win the yardage battle an inch at a time? Pausing this news just to say that if you want YouTube to keep recommending the latest Eagles Nation news to you, it's very important that you leave a like on this video. Thanks. Now let's get back to the news. 5 remaining free agents who could be fits for Eagles. The Eagles haven't been major players in free agency, but there are still some players out there who could interest them. The first couple waves of free agency have passed, and the Eagles signed a bunch of players. While they weren't big spenders in free agency, the Eagles did add players after the new league year began. And with Howie Roseman, they're never really done. Roseman always says the talent acquisition phase doesn't really end until the trade deadline. After a couple weeks of free agency, there are still some talented players on the street. Here are 5 who could fit with the Eagles' Justin Simmons. Simmons is 31 now, and his days of being a Pro Bowler and All-Pro are likely behind him. But he still started 16 games with the Falcons last year and played at a relatively high level. When the Eagles hired Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator last year, it was natural to think they'd go get a bunch of his former players. After all, that's what happened in 2016 when the Eagles hired veteran DC Jim Schwartz, but that didn't happen with Fangio. So it's unclear how much Simmons' history with Fangio and DB's coach Christian Parker from their time together in Denver really matters. But Simmons has spoken about his interest in reuniting, and the Eagles have a need at safety after trading C.J. Gardner-Johnson to the Houston Texans. Another key element here is that Simmons last offseason didn't sign with the Falcons until August, and is probably in no rush to make a decision as to where he'll play the 10th season of his NFL career. It would make sense if Simmons wants to watch the draft and then make his decision based on situation, and that would likely be fine with the Eagles, who have been playing the compensatory pick game this offseason. No deals signed after the draft count toward that formula. So if this move is destined to happen, it likely wouldn't happen until after the draft, much like the Eagles' signing of Mekhi Becton last offseason. As Julian Blackmon NFL, like we mentioned, the Eagles seem to have a need at safety, and Blackmon is one of the top ones available. But he's also still just 26 and is entering year 6 of his NFL career in 2025, so he might cost more than the Eagles are willing to spend. Then again, most teams have already handed out their big money deals in free agency. The Colts drafted Blackmon in the 3rd round out of Utah back in 2020 when Nick Sirianni was still their offensive coordinator. In his 5 years in Indy, Blackmon played in 66 games with 62 starts and has 10 career picks, 7 of which have come the last 2 years. D.L. Calais Campbell, a big theme of the Eagles' offseason, has been getting younger and relying on draft picks, so this move would definitely buck that trend. Campbell is 38 and has already played 17 seasons in the NFL. He's not a Pro Bowler anymore, but Campbell has played every game over the last 2 years, and he has been productive with 11-12 combined sacks in 2023 and 2024. Campbell likely would cost much. His 1-year deal with the Dolphins in 2024 was worth $2 million, and he would bolster the Eagles' depth at defensive tackle with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Moro Ojomo. And if Campbell wants to hunt for a ring, who better to join than the defending Super Bowl champs? L.B. Kizir White, the Eagles' biggest move of the offseason was to resign Zach Bond to a 3-year, $51 million deal. But they also let Oren Burks walk in free agency, and that could be an issue because Nakobe Dean is still recovering from a torn patellar tendon. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is in line to be a starter, and perhaps the Eagles' lack of movement at the position is simply a vote of confidence in the young Axeman. But if they want to add someone, Maybe an old friend makes sense. White played for the Eagles in 2022 before following Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis to Arizona to be a starter for the Cardinals the last 2 seasons. It's a bit confusing as to why the Cardinals haven't resigned the 29-year-old, but the longer he's out there, the more likely it is that he leaves. Right now, White would probably still cost more than the Eagles would be willing to pay, but they should at least keep an eye on him. O.T. Jedrick Wills, the Eagles, signed veteran Kendall Lamb to be their swing tackle in 2025, replacing Fred Johnson, who left in free agency. The 30-year-old has a ton of NFL experience, but is also coming off a back injury that required surgery. Maybe the signing of Lamb ends any chance of signing Wills, but it probably shouldn't. Wills is still just 25 years old and was the 10th overall pick back in 2020. And he hasn't been a disaster in the NFL, starting 57 games for the Browns over 5 seasons. Things with the Browns ended a bit weirdly, which is why he's expected to leave Cleveland. Why not get another low-risk project in the building for Jeff Stoutland? Sure, Stout already has a project in front of him with Kenyon Green, but the Eagles could add another. And now, Birds fan, I want to hear from you. What's your opinion on this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I don't know if you know this, but your opinion matters a lot for Birds. I'll be back any moment with more Eagles Nation news. Fly, Eagles, fly.